All right, good almost afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to join in on the call. So we will get started in just a couple minutes. All right, good afternoon, everyone. We still have quite a few people joining, so just give us a couple minutes and we'll get started. All right, so it looks like we have a good amount of people joining. I will continue to admit people as they come in. But good afternoon, officially. Welcome. My name is Ricky Clark. I'm a public affairs associate here at Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. And I'm very grateful and excited to have everyone join us for this year's version of Tap In. This year, our theme, I guess you can say, is sustainable education and balancing the new norm. So before we get started, let me admit a few more people. Let's go over some housekeeping things, right? Because we're, now moving this conference that's usually in person into the virtual space. And let me actually keep it on gallery view. So as you guys can notice, we are obviously on Zoom, but we're not necessarily in webinar format. That is because in order to operate with the breakout rooms, we had to have this meeting as a Zoom meeting as opposed to a webinar. So a couple of things I want to make sure everyone is apprised of. You're all muted, right? I will be unmuting our speakers. Obviously, I'll stay unmuted the whole time. And that way we can kind of keep the feedback and background noise to a minimum. I also want to make sure that everybody that's on this call is operating from a desktop, either or a Zoom desktop app or a mobile app, and make sure that it has the current update. If you don't have update 5.3 or later, you will not be able to participate in the breakout rooms. You won't be able to select your own breakout room later on in the webinar. So if you need to, go ahead and log off and update. If not, then we can go ahead and get started, and I'll make sure that I'll admit everybody else as we're moving forward. A couple other things, I mentioned that you guys are all muted and it'll stay that way until the breakout room started. While we're running the panel though, I would like to request that everyone move their view to speaker view. That way, if it's either myself or Director Lowhill or any of the panelists speaking, you'll be able to see them as opposed to the big gallery view of all of the faces and names that you'll have if you have it, in gallery view. If you don't know how to do that, you can go to the top right corner of the Zoom window where it says view and then switch that to speaker view. That way, whoever is speaking will be kind of the big face on your screen, and you'll be able to match a name to a face. All right, so now that we have that covered, we'll go ahead and get started. It looks like I have everyone admitted, and I'll keep my eye on that. So I want to thank you all for joining this webinar. I know we're kind of in the middle of election season and pandemic and just kind of everything that is the madness of 2020. So I really appreciate you all taking your time to learn about what we're discussing here in terms of sustainable education and sort of how it relates to what we do here at the Water District. I see everybody kind of coming in on the chat. Go ahead and use that chat for questions, comments, saying hello to colleagues. That's what it's there for. And then if we have any questions during the panel or during the extent of the webinar, I'll go ahead and check that and make sure that your questions get answered. So, sustainable education. What is sustainable education? It is essentially working in sustainability initiatives into curriculum and making sure that this is something that students are exposed to and adequately educated about in the same way that they are kind of other curriculum. So math, sciences, tech, which is a big thing now. We want to make sure that our students and our kids that are kind of rising and coming into this world have a good idea of the importance of sustainability, the importance of environmental justice, which is something that they're really big on themselves, and kind of how we fit in that as educators, as water professionals, which many of us are, and as parents, right? Because it's our responsibility to not only educate our youth, but prepare them for the world and make sure that we're leaving them with a world that they can thrive in. And that's something that we're very passionate about in water. So now that we've kind of covered sustainable education, I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, why is it a water district kind of facilitating this conversation on education? Well, a large part of what we do actually is education. We, as Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, have a longstanding partnership with Las Virgenes Unified School District to make sure that some initiatives that we are very passionate about, sustainability, water conservation, water security, watershed protection, we want to make sure we get those messages to the kids. And so as a community member and as sort of leaders in sustainability, and a lot of us like to call ourselves stewards of the environment, it's really important that we position ourselves as a community member and a community leader to bring the necessary people together to have these conversations and really make a plan for how we are going to tackle environmental outreach, environmental education, and how we are going to make sure that our kids are properly informed about the issues that they're essentially going to have to face moving forward. So that's sort of the role that we play in water. Within this session, we'll be actually having a panel discussion about the current landscape of education and how it is evolving both during and because of COVID and beyond. We'll also be having breakout sessions directly after that panel, covering a couple or a few different topics. One will be environmental education led by Kelly with the Resource Conservation District of Santa Monica Mountains. Something that's super on topic right now with kids not being able to, be outside in the natural environment with educators and, visit the streams and visit even our facilities. Being able to have that resource that the RCD has as far as distance education and the activities that they're offering is very much on topic. Another topic that we'll be covering within the breakout sessions later on is learning pods, and Roman Slavinsky with A+ Tutoring will be leading that breakout session. If you're interested in the way that learning pods have been operating during the pandemic, if you're interested in maybe joining one, if you kind of want to see what those look like and how they keep your students safe, go ahead and join that one. And finally, led by LaSalle DeGrave, we will be having a breakout session that's discussing homeschooling alternatives. So homeschooling is something that's, garnered a lot more attention now with distance learning and with the pandemic. And so this Lacelle DeGrave is actually a parent and a full-time water professional who has been homeschooling her kids for over a year now. So before the pandemic started, so she has some experience, some tips and tricks that she would like to share with interested attendees. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce our first speaker, and that's going to be LVMWD Director Linda Lohill. She is going to offer some opening remarks, and I will go ahead and unmute you, Linda, as soon as I can find you. And again, I'd like to remind everyone to change their view to speaker view so that you know who's speaking and they kind of show up on your screen. Let me see, where are you, Linda? Oh, there you are, gotcha.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Does it sound okay, Ricky?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay, well, welcome everybody today to today's Tap In 2020 event. My name is Linda Lohill, and I'm one of 5 directors on the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District Board. And I'm really excited about this event today because this event is about water and education. And those are my 2 most favorite things in the whole world. I love education. For 18 years of my career, I was a tutor, and I tutored mathematics, statistics, and economics. I love teaching math. I love learning math. I think math is like a puzzle. It's kind of like a Rubik's Cube that you're given the rules to, and you spend your time figuring it out. And it's fun to solve. The more you practice, the better you get at it. I think it's a lot of fun to teach that to kids in such a way that's exciting and interesting to them. I started out with a business degree, but then I went on and I had the opportunity to do an economics degree. And what's great about economics is that it combines math with human behavior. Who would have thought? It's wonderful that this study can combine those 2 parts. I love it. In my economics degree, I studied natural resources, and that's where I learned how interesting and important water is in our society and on our planet. Water is a scarce resource. There's only 3% of all the water in the world is drinkable water. Population's growing, amount of water staying the same. We're guaranteed to have troubles and to need some solutions. The solutions, I believe, are with you, with educators, with parents, and with our children of the future. We need them to enter fields that impact water and that can help our future with water. We need biologists who can keep the water clean for us and make sure the water is clean for fish in the creeks and streams. We need mechanics. We need electricians to keep the water system running carefully. We need social scientists to deal with politics and economics and policy making to keep this system changing in the positive direction. We need computer systems people to run the smart technologies that are going to run our plants more efficiently every day. We need engineers to design facilities like our Pure Water project that we're unveiling in a few years, and our demonstration facility has been unveiled. And we need economists like me who can study the system that you can get 2 people together, and an economist can say, you know what, if you just make a tiny compromise, it's going to make a big benefit to the other person, and get those 2 people together to make a mutual decision that benefits everything. Thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to the event.
Thank you so much, Linda, for those opening remarks. And so we'll go ahead and get started with the panel now. But before I introduce our esteemed panel members, for those of you that joined us kind of late, a couple housekeeping items to make sure that this Zoom meeting runs smoothly. I want to make sure that everyone has the updated version of Zoom. So Before we get started, just make sure that you are running on 5.3.0 or later. That way you can adequately participate in the breakout sessions later on. You all will be picking the breakout sessions that you want to participate in. And in order to do that, you do have to have the up-to-date version. So I want to make sure that we're all clear with that. And then as we move forward with the panel in a second here, make sure that you have your view on speaker view. Usually in webinar format, I'm able to just have the panelists spotlighted, but we couldn't use that format because it's not compatible with breakout rooms. So we had to be in the meeting format, and we just kind of have to, work with the technology that we're given and make it work. So as I introduce the panelists, if I can have you raise your hand when I say your name, virtually raise your hand on Zoom. And then I can unmute you as well so that you can say hi. And then as we move forward, I will keep all of the panelists unmuted. So I'll go ahead and unmute you all right now. That way you can speak freely. And then if everyone has their speaker or their view on speaker view, each time a panelist speaks, they will be the face that you see. So you're not looking at the gallery view, if that makes sense. So let me go through and find my final two panelists so that I can go ahead and unmute you. Give me 1 second. Adrian, are you here? I can't quite find you. Adrian, okay, no, maybe he's a little bit late. Nancy? All right, you guys, give me a quick second as I try to locate my other two panelists here. There we go, Nancy. All right, so it looks like we have three of our panelists. I'll go ahead and introduce them while we wait for the last one to hop on. So first we have Dr. Clara Finneran. She is the Assistant Superintendent with Las Virgenes Unified School District. I mentioned that we have a long-standing partnership with them. We work very closely with them to make sure that we get our sustainability initiatives out there. So we're super excited and grateful to have you a part of the panel today, Clara. Go ahead and say hi.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here. Hi.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Finneran. Next, we have Allison Loki. Allison, if you want to say hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be part of this panel, and I'm excited and looking forward to it.
So a few of you may know Allison. She's somewhat of a local celebrity in water. She's definitely one of the first women that reached out to me when I first started in water in the Inland Empire. And she actually works double time. So she is the community affairs manager over at Yoruba Community Services District for their water sector. And then she's also adjunct faculty at San Bernardino Community College, where she basically assists and helps teach CTE, which is a topic that we're going to be covering during our panel. So thank you for joining us, Allison. And then next we have Nancy Jobs. Go ahead and say hi, Nancy.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today.
Yes, we're happy to have you. Nancy is a chemistry teacher at Calabasas High School, and she's also a chairperson of the science department. So she'll be offering some. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to correct you. I'm a biology teacher.
Biology teacher. Thank you for the correction. Sorry about that. And chairperson of the science department. At least I got that one right. Thank you for joining us, Nancy. You'll be offering some great perspective from the teacher's point of view, and we're really excited to have you. And it looks like we're just waiting on our final panel member, who is Adrian Hightower. Many of us also know Adrian. He is the education services or the education unit manager over at Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. He is a giant. He is a very informative and very knowledgeable person in water. And so we're really excited to have him and his point of view as well. He'll be joining us in a minute here. So we will go ahead and get started with the panel. Again, if any of our participants have any questions throughout the course of the panel, please go ahead and put them in the chat box, and I'll make sure to get to those after we complete our discussion. So with further ado, let's go ahead and start with the moment, right? And kind of address the low-hanging fruit. And maybe Dr. Finneran, you can kind of get us started with this. What is kind of the current state of the district's return plans for students, and what safeguards are being put in place to make sure that it will be a safe return whenever they do return?
Great, thanks, Ricky. Happy to tackle that question. I think the most important thing that we can attempt to ensure, no matter if it's COVID times or not, is our student safety. So appreciate that that's the way that you framed the question. I do want to say I'm slightly distracted right now. We have our TK through second grade students returning to school, like actually coming to school in person starting on Monday. We are over the moon, as you can tell. I could like do a happy dance for you, but I won't embarrass myself or you all. But we are so excited, and it has been a tremendous amount of work to get to this point. Long story short, we were approved by the county to bring back our TK through second grade students. That's Los Angeles County, obviously. And the process was quite laborious and involved some significant conversation with our labor unions. And when we were approved, at that point in time, we had to have a letter of support from our units, so from our bargaining units. They have since realized that that probably was not the best way to bring public school students back, because what ended up happening is they were inundated with private school applications. I have worked in both worlds, so nothing, I certainly do not want to imply anything negative about private schools. But because we have bargaining units, that is a tremendous hurdle for us to surpass. So what are we doing to get ready for students? A number of things. Of course, all of the PPE has been in place. We have spent probably nearly $1.6 million on ensuring our student safety. So that's everything from face masks to UV filtration systems that are in our ducting, touchless thermometers, because of course we have to have hundreds of those now. We have thermal scanners for when our students enter campus, so as to double check that they don't have a temperature. We have installed hand washing stations. We have additional easy ups outside. We have additional umbrellas, and of course crates and all those things that you think about that you only have to have one of, that now you have to have multiple of because kids can't share items. Most importantly, I think aside from all of those items that will keep students safe, is our staffing and then our structures. So our staffing, we have additional staff, of course, that we've had to bring back and or hire. So at each of our elementary campuses, we will have 4 to 6 campus supervisors. And what they will do is ensure that students aren't multiply in the bathroom, that they're supervised when they're in their assigned playground areas, as an example, that they're staying apart when they're ingressing and egressing to and from campus. And then of course we have our amazing teachers who are now transitioning TK through second grade into the classroom, and they have had some time this week to prepare their classrooms and to kind of shift the way that they might be instructing, because students won't be able to move around the classroom in the same way they have in the past. Sorry, a very long answer, but I suppose what that indicates is the effort and the breadth that and the depth that's required to bring students back to campus.
Yeah,
I can talk a little bit more about 3rd through 5th and secondary later, but.
Sure. So since that's kind of what's going on right now, are the students coming back kind of with limited class sizes, or is that still being discussed?
Yes. So students are coming back in. We cannot have more than 12 students in a cohort. So that is a public health requirement, and the state expectation is 14. LA County Public Health, as you may or may not know, has well within their purview to be more stringent than the state. So they have reduced that to 12. And they'll be coming in a morning cohort, and in an afternoon cohort.
Awesome. So it sounds like that'll kind of help the teachers manage the crowds and keep the students apart. I know that these are going to be the youngest students that are going back first. So
yes, it is important to say that we have had about 220 students on campus already, because the county allowed for high need students to return. And so we brought back our students that are served by IEPs and particular programs, individualized education plans, otherwise known as special education. We did bring those students back, a number of them back. And so they've been back for 5 weeks now. So we really have had a chance to hone some of our practices.
awesome. Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. And it's good to know that there, are already kind of restrictions and kind of things in place to make sure that the students are safe. Before we move forward with the panel, our final panelist has joined us. I'll go ahead and unmute you. I kind of already introduced you, Adrian, but go ahead and say hi to our guest. This is Adrian Hightower. He is the Education Unit Manager over at Metropolitan Water District, and a colleague of mine that is very knowledgeable, and we're very excited to have him on the panel. Go ahead and say hi, Adrian.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Sometimes I sound like
can.
Mickey Mouse, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. This is, I think, what we mean in terms of the new reality for education, technological challenges. But I'm very grateful to be here. It's nice to see some friends. Allison, good to see you. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrian. So as I mentioned to the other panelists and the other participants, I'll go ahead and leave you unmuted during the course of the panel. That way you can kind of speak freely. And then for those of you that kind of joined us a little bit late, I would just say make sure to have your speaker or your view on speaker view so that you can see both myself and the panelists each time we're speaking, since we don't have the function to spotlight the speaker. All right, so thank you, Dr. Finneran, for kind of that information on the current, return to school plans for the district. Kind of going off, what we were talking about, not surprisingly, distance education is not very popular, both to students and parents and teachers and administrators. I don't think anyone is really a big fan of distance education. And that has been reflected in various polls, the most recent being an EdSource poll. How have educators, I guess, sought to create a more engaging distance learning environment for students this semester? And maybe Nancy, you can kind of lead us off on that one if you'd like.
Thanks, Ricky. I'm sorry I interrupted you earlier.
No
I'm the department chair of science, so I'm primarily focusing on what we do in the science department because that's what I'm familiar with. And I took a little bit of information from other teachers in the department as well to be able to contribute more fully. So I think teachers are working very hard to try to keep these lessons interesting and engaging. For example, now that we're not in the classroom doing some of the hands-on labs and activities, we have been working on redesigning them so students can carry out some of these labs at home. If they don't have the supplies, we've been doing drive-bys so they can pick up supplies, and that they've had a lot of fun with that. We asked them to demonstrate by putting photos of their lab results in and of course analyzing. We've had interactive assignments and simulations, videos. One of the fun things is virtual tours and virtual labs. So that can be a little more engaging as well versus just reading. Many of the teachers are doing flipped classrooms. So some of the teachers have recorded themselves conducting a class or conducting a lesson. You can sometimes also get some really good previously recorded things from PBS like Crash Course or Bozeman Science that are quite good. So when these are assigned, it allows the teacher, when they get together with their students on Zoom, to go ahead and work out the problems with the students, put them in groups and they can work together, or the teacher is available then to go help with some hands-on learning through Zoom as far as problem solving. Some teachers are using games, articles with real life connections. And of course, the breakout rooms are a really great way to interact. One of the final things, and I know the district has focused on this quite a lot, is mental health and how are we staying in touch with one another. So many teachers are setting up some questions for students to discuss in their little groups or as a large class, but that are more personal. Like, for example, would you rather be on the beach or would you rather be in the forest, and why? What would your favorite vacation spot be? So it just opens the doors to a little more connection.
That's great. And it's great that, we can use technology, for good to stay connected. And I'm glad you touched on that, Nancy. Obviously, this pandemic has forced a huge shift in our reliance on technology. So how is this going to play out moving forward, even beyond COVID? And what is the district doing to kind of stay apprised with that and keep up with that?
We believe in our department and that it's going to have, actually, believe it or not, a really positive impact, because now that we are focusing on looking for periphery lessons, we're finding virtual tours, we're finding additional support in other areas that can really enhance and supplement what we're already doing in the classroom. They have webcams of marine life at some of the aquariums, that kind of thing. And just to try to briefly give you an example, I started the school year teaching the immune system. So I was able to use the textbook and the online resources from that to teach the basic immune system. But without the internet, I would have had no current information on COVID-19, which of course is what I wanted to focus on. And there we found some great resources have popped up. Lab Exchange, put out by Harvard University, had some incredible information on COVID-19. So I knew it was valid and I knew it was something I could bring into the classroom. So I think although this has been a challenge, there's a positive side to it.
Yes, absolutely. And we're grateful for teachers like you that do the research and do the work to kind of seek out those resources that are available. So it's basically, since the beginning of this pandemic, equity has been at the forefront of the discussion as it relates to distance learning. And the pandemic has kind of revealed a pretty big disparity amongst students in regards to access to broadband and computers. Dr. Finneran, what, if any, challenges has the district faced in regards to equity, for their students, and what can be done to make sure that students have access to tools that they need to adjust to this shift, both now and moving forward?
Thanks, Ricky. I just want to acknowledge Ms. Jobs and who she represents, and she did it so humbly. Teachers right now are so incredibly, they are making the definition of lemons to lemonade a reality. They really are. And, teaching online is very, very different than teaching in person. So Ms. Jobs, we appreciate you and all of your colleagues. And I think, having been, of course, a classroom teacher myself, I think without that experience, and certainly I'm not teaching virtually right now, although some days I frankly might prefer that to what I'm doing right now. But anyway, I think sometimes people don't recognize the challenges that teachers have faced and the volume of work. So as far as equity, hasn't COVID shown a spotlight on equity in so many ways, right? And certainly the times and the context that we're living in right now, without going too far into what the whole picture is, but just acknowledging that there has been a renewed focus on those equity issues, and they are significant across our country. As far as, specifically to answer your question, as far as technology and how we have addressed that, we were fortunate in that we were already a one-to-one district. What that means when we say one-to-one is that all of our students had already had a device, and many districts were not in that situation. What we did have to do very quickly is secure more hotspots, because not all of our students have internet access, and we did have to secure more laptops for our students who needed to swap them out, because now that they're relying on them more, we did have to have that backup supply. About 15%, and I'm saying that number loosely because I recognize that it has fluctuated significantly. About 15% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, which is a very, very small percentage compared to other districts in the state. And so I just want to speak on behalf of those other districts for just a moment, in that those issues have been much more significant for them than they have been for us. And so what we have had to do is pay very close attention to those students. And we're doing home visits as an example. We are reaching out to families to ensure that they have the food and the supplies that they need. But it is a tremendous undertaking to educate students from a distance, especially given these times. So I do want to add one more thing. We our two main focus areas for our professional development for our staff have been on distance learning and on social justice efforts. And so the intersection of those two really has been a great opportunity for us, and our staff, I think, has benefited from the intersection of those learning opportunities.
Thank you. Yeah, and that really speaks to kind of holistic education, right? The school district isn't necessarily just in charge of teaching curriculum and the sciences and math and stuff like that. You really want to focus on raising the whole child. So you do have to address current events and things going on, and make sure kids have a view into that and are aware of those things. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Adrian, maybe you could help shed some light on some of the challenges that other school districts that maybe kind of face more of a disparity with kind of the technological divide, and kind of what's being done to help them.
Happy to. So as Metropolitan Water District, we represent 6 counties: Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Riverside County, San Bernardino, and Ventura. In total, that's about 20 million people, and about 5 million of them are students and teachers. So my staff of 6 rely heavily on technology to disseminate our information. And we do that different ways in different areas because of the discrepancies that we're speaking about. And those have manifested, as we've talked about, in terms of the digital divide, access to technology, access to bandwidth, but also in terms of access to the PPE, the personal protective gear, that is required for those communities that are going back. As you know, the state has a ranking system in terms of which counties are able to go back. There's also special avenues for special needs with classes of less than 14. And there's avenues for elementary school children to go. And those have primarily been utilized by private schools. But what we see in those disparities is that even in the counties, particularly San Diego and Orange County, where there is the opportunity to open up schools, that the schools that are the most affluent are the ones that are opening first. And they also tend to have local communities with the lowest COVID rates. So this issue of income disparity crosses not only technology, but in terms of folks' ability in schools, individual schools' ability to adapt to the challenges ahead. And lastly, I'll say that these disparities are only been amplified by COVID, as you know. And I'll reiterate probably something that's been said already, that at the same time that school budgets have been cut, and if you look across California, those cuts are between 15 and 20%. And that is the good news because of the CARES Act. Without the CARES Act, those cuts would have been anywhere between 20 and 30%. But at the same time that those cuts are hitting schools, there is an increase in cost for those schools, regardless of whether they're adopting a hybrid model or if they're back in person. If they're adopting a hybrid model, then as Clara alluded, there's additional costs in terms of technology, hotspots, access to bandwidth. Then those are increased costs. If they're going back in person, then there's increased costs associated with PPE, protective equipment, increased sanitation costs, and most importantly, testing. So those challenges that are hitting everyone across the board are particularly hitting those schools that are most disadvantaged.
Thank you, Adrian. And Allison, would you like to follow up on that?
Yeah, did want to bring something up because I teach at community college, and then of course I'm involved in my district with education for K through 12. And in both instances, we have a lot of lower income schools or students. I'm very fortunate at Valley College that they actually started us taking classes on how to teach online last year, almost as if they knew the pandemic was coming. So I had taken one class and that was it. And at the time when I took the class, the instructor said, you know, if you have to teach online, you might want to completely dump what you have and completely start over because it's not going to work online. Truer words were never spoken, because when they made the move for us, they called it early that we would be teaching from home exclusively for at least a year. They'd already made that call. Literally, I can't even tell you how much work it was, and that's at the college level. And when you combine that with students who are low income, often in the foothills where they're getting burned out and suffering from COVID at a much higher rate, the technology really, really became important. And it wasn't unusual for me to have a student take my class on their cell phone until they could actually get a computer from the school and they had no Wi-Fi, no access to internet. So as a teacher, I had to completely redo the way I teach, but I also had to redo things like not penalize anybody for a late assignment or missing a class because 2 of my students were burned out last semester. Everything changed, but I think it's here for us to stay. For me, it caused me to completely rethink not only the goals and objectives of the class, but how I'm teaching the class, which is very similar to what Nancy said. So I just wanted to reiterate, that's all the way across the spectrum, not just even K through 12.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know some college students who, even before the COVID, they had to, like you mentioned, take whole courses from their phone. I know students that have had to write 10-page essays on their phone, and they did it and they succeeded and they, you know, passed the class, and that's great. But these aren't the stories we want to hear. What we want to hear is, you know, teachers like you, Allison, and you, Nancy, and district members, Dr. Finneran, kind of looking ahead and kind of meeting the moment before it comes and knowing that, you know, these are the challenges that our students face and, you know, adjusting and acting accordingly. So we appreciate that for sure. So moving forward, let's get into kind of the meat of why we're here, right? Sustainable education is the theme of this webinar, and the youth has largely kind of been leading the charge in terms of speaking up about climate change and other environmental injustice. So what role does school curriculum play in informing them of these issues, and how will it evolve as these issues become more urgent?
I guess that question goes to me, right?
Whoever would like to tackle it first.
Actually, I can address that. We are following the next generation science standards, and those standards include environmental impact, human impact on the environment, climate change as a fact. And we teach, that usually takes place, at least in our school, the second half of the year. And we spend a lot of time going through, for example, the importance of fresh water and what's going wrong in a lot of areas, like plastics in the water, dead zones where you have miles and miles and miles of ocean that has no oxygen. It doesn't have enough oxygen to support life. So we actually do address that in our classrooms.
And Nancy, as these topics become, you know, kind of hotter and hotter within the last couple of years, have you seen kind of a shift within those science standards, or has it kind of already addressed these issues?
We recently have, over the last couple of years, we've gotten new textbooks that have been updated to address this. We also see over the years, we've seen a huge difference in students' awareness and students, just their education level on what's happening in the environment. And some of them are really well-versed in it. And we sometimes tap them to because it makes for interesting discussions, let's put it that way. Because sometimes someone will certainly know more than I do in a particular area where maybe I've looked at another area and I might know a little more in that area. So it makes life really interesting. But I think there's a lot more awareness in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years on environmental issues.
I
Sure.
think sometimes the voice that we neglect is the voice that is the most important, which is the voice of our students. And sometimes we become so self-absorbed and so important in our adultness that we truly do forget, and it is unintentional, and so it is a goal of ours, constantly at the district level and at the site level, as Nancy said, to really empower and listen to that student voice. I'm sure Allison sees that at the community college level too. I'd love to hear about that.
I was just going to add that in the last 4 or 5 years, I've really had to add entire environmental units. I've looked at some high school curriculum and then enhanced it to play games, and we can still do it online. Even something like Tragedy of the Commons is a great activity that you can do online, and it really enhances a lesson for students. But sure, I've added climate change units, environment units, watershed units. It's really changed. And they're very interested in social justice, very interested in it. So we've added a lesson on that as well. And what does it mean? And how do we attain that? What are the steps? It's really fascinating.
I think I can provide a little historical context, because our role at the Water District is to teach about water in all of its forms. So the math of water, the chemistry of water, the history of water, and the social justice of water. And we've been at this for 35 years, and we've seen an evolution in environmental education, where in early part of this century, you had the Environmental Education Initiative. And these are a series of curriculums that were made available and actually mandated to be taught. Similar to all of our standards, the Common Core, the Next Generation Science Standards, there was a series of environmental standards, which in 2018 were codified into statute by SB 720. And just like all the other standards, it's a lot to get teachers' head around and for textbooks to catch up. So one of our roles have been to provide that education that synchronizes with existing standards, as well as brings it forward in terms of modern discussions on environment. I think Clara hit on a really good point that last century, when I was in school, and even early this century when I was a professor, it was, you are the source of knowledge and you're talking to people, disseminating this knowledge. And that is not the model anymore. That the model currently is creating environmental learning environments where both teachers and students work together collaboratively to bring forth knowledge and ideas and solve problems and enhance skills. And environmental problems and questions that are inherently interdisciplinary and address the triple bottom line, that triple bottom line of economics, of social impact and environmental impact, plays well in pretty much every subject. So I think as we look at standards and the evolution between EEI and current environmental principles and concepts, I think the next decade, you'll see mandated climate change standards. I think you're going to see other standards which we haven't talked about, but Allison wrote the book on them, career technical education standards that embody these sustainable principles. That this is going to be an underpinning of education, regardless of fields, going forward. Similarly, how we don't really teach computers anymore. You learn computers. I had a computer class back last century. Now you know computers. That underpinning of sustainability is going to find its way into just about every subject, including the ones you won't think about, like English and humanities. But yeah, I think we're going to see that going forward and evolving forward, because in these learning communities, the students are driving that conversation.
we find that we have some environmental science classes on our campus at different levels, and we find the students become so involved with those classes that they go out and become the experts in certain areas because they're so interested in what's going on and what they can do personally. Even if it's a small thing, they know that it can be a wave of action.
Thank you. And Adrian, you kind of touched on this in the ways that, you know, you don't really teach computer anymore because people kind of know computers. Ed tech has been growing in relevance within school curriculum, obviously, to better prepare students, you know, for the quickly evolving technological world. So moving forward, are we going to see schools seek investments in sustainability curriculum, water conservation, you know, watershed management, things of that sort in the same way that they have in tech curriculum?
I think so. I think there's a need for it. And I think, frankly, what the CARES Act proved was that there's the need for federal investment into the states to do this type of work. And so I'm optimistic going forward that that opportunity is going to present itself.
Awesome. Yeah. And I would just like to add, we kind of touched on this before we move into CTE. You know, environmental justice is a real concern for students, you know, that don't have the Santa Monica Mountains as their backdrop, as you know, we do here within our service area. They don't really have that kind of proximity or that access to their natural environment. So we're excited to have Kelly from the RCD on leading the next breakout session, where she kind of shows how distance learning can kind of bridge that gap and highlight these issues for these students that can't necessarily be, you know, at the streams or, you know, within the watershed out in nature. So I just kind of wanted to add that and you know, show how we're going to be highlighting how we're bridging that gap.
Cool.
So moving forward, CTE is a big subject. It's super hot, not only in water, but across several different industries, right? For those of you that are unaware, CTE is career technical education. And it's essentially teaching students, you know, specialized information, right? So for us, we work in water. We're looking to educate students that are in high school right now of all of the different careers that are available within water, right? Director Lowhill sort of touched on this with her opening remarks. We have, you know, engineering positions within water. We have accounting positions within water. If you're interested in business, if you're interested in, you know, using your hands and working in construction, we offer all of that within water. And one thing that's becoming a large part of our outreach at LVMWD to our students in regards to water is not just water security, not just water conservation, because these are things that we've kind of been beating into our students for years now, but we're teaching them that they have opportunities, right, in careers in water, very stable careers in water. And so we're looking to kind of drum up that interest. So Allison, can you kind of shed some light about the rise of the CTE curriculum within high schools and community colleges, essentially, because you're kind of our in-house specialist here?
Well, yes and no. So just to give a little brief background, I was hired about 4 years ago to assist some teachers writing classes that essentially replaced biology, chemistry, and physics, but revolved entirely around water. And I had the opportunity to work with some very fine teachers, because teachers have their own lingo, right? I'm not a K through 12 teacher, I'm a community college teacher. So that worked out really well. And then I was hired to write some CTE only classes. And the gist of the classes was they would be taught at the high school level. Once you took the first one, which was 1 year long, you would technically be trained to, once you turned 18, to take your certification test for distribution, treatment, wastewater, and water use efficiency. Then we wrote another one for the second level. And then to top off the biology, chemistry, and physics equivalent, we wrote a government and econ class. Thank you, Adrian, who helped me with a lot of the econ stuff on it. So much, so much. So these have been used in several school districts. They are A through G approved by the UC Board of Regents. I was very happy to learn that more school districts are picking them up now. They're available. They're essentially free to any school that wants to use them within the state of California. And it was great, good fun for me to write on that. Much of what I used in those classes was stuff that I had learned at Valley. It's not all that different. But of course, you have to meet standards in high school that you do not have to meet at Valley, so, or as a community college teacher. So they were pretty carefully aligned to NGSS standards or CTE competencies. And I think they've been pretty successful. I just spoke to another water district last week who was kind of interested in the material. And that's kind of the beginning of it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think I can add on to that. And Allison is the author of essentially the CTE curriculum that we're promoting. Just to give people some context, if you're like me and were educated in the last century, you called that vocational training or your shop classes, right? Your wood shop, and we don't do that anymore. There was a problem with vocational training in that it tended to bifurcate students. You'd have some students that would go to college and some students that would go to the trades. And modern career technical education creates pathways. And those pathways are essentially combinations of sometimes middle school and high school, community college or trade schools or universities, and then industry partners. If you get all those folks together and they have a network, then you have a clear pathway of both academic coursework as well as potential internship opportunities and mentorship opportunities for a student to excel in different pathways. And the language is a little different in K through 12. There are like 15 different pathways. In the community colleges, there are 11 different pathways, and they don't match perfectly. But one of the things that we've been working on for the past 2 years, 3 years really, is that there aren't a lot of formalized pathways to jobs in the water industry. And to that end, we've worked with Allison. There's also Tiffany Baca on the line and Sarah Wilson from MODOC, who have championed WEA, the Water Energy Education Alliance. And I hope that Tiffany, you guys could put the link in the chat for people to share. But this idea of what does it take to promote these opportunities? And if we can get that combination of high schools, trade colleges, and established water programs and water agencies, can we expand the awareness of these wonderful jobs in the water industry? The utilities, like many other, are facing the silver tsunami. Right now at Metropolitan, 51% of the staff could retire tomorrow, walk out the door if they want. COVID has accelerated that throughout the industry, where there's a lot more packages being offered to senior staff members to take early retirement. Just at the point when we see a lot of institutional knowledge leaving, we need a lot of trained folks to come in, and we need overlap so that we can get some good transfer of information and a smooth transition. So water career technical education is something that we're working heavily on. Some of the things that have been holding up that progress includes access to curriculum. Allison really took care of that by establishing 6 courses, 3 of which are science and meet NGSS requirements, 3 of which I think they all meet CTE requirements, but also, frankly, scheduling and resources. Even if you have that connection of an interested school and an interested university and a partner that's willing to add funding, whether that school can fit it in their schedule or have a teacher that is able to be CTE certified, because that's another level of credentialing, that's where a lot of the challenge lies. And so we're actively looking at creative solutions in terms of co-teaching opportunities, including externships, so that we can get teachers the hours they need to get credentialed in CTE. But this is an active area of work with WEA. And thank you, Tiffany, for putting that link in the chat.
Thank you, Adrian. And so obviously you guys can kind of get the gist that this has been a huge push on behalf of educators and the water industry. And it's not necessarily just for our, our own gain, because we're, facing sort of this silver tsunami that Adrian mentioned, but, just as our position as a community leader within our service area, what we provide is a service that everyone needs, right? Water is what absolutely everyone needs across the board. There's no getting away from it. And so when we're out in the schools and we're giving presentations and we're offering tours, we're always talking about our role in that, right? Not just as the providers of water, but our role in protecting our watershed, keeping the Santa Monica Mountains beautiful, and protecting water security, and the things that we're doing, for example, with the Pure Water Project that you'll learn about in session 2, to address our challenges that we face with water security, and kind of how we're meeting the moment in terms of creating our own water supply, and maximizing beneficial reuse. So we really do kind of sit in a position that is incredibly important, and we are not able to offer these services effectively to students and to customers and everyone that lives here if we don't have adequate staff. And so along with our conservation messaging that has been consistent throughout the years, throughout the decades at this point, now we really have to kind of get into these schools and get into the curriculum really, and drum up more interest from students in water as an entire world, right? Not just as a service, not just as something that comes out of their faucet or their hose or that goes down the toilet. We have to expose them to the world of water and the possibilities of water. And that's why, we wanted to have this discussion around CTE and make sure that educators know that this is going to be the next push in what we do in water. This is what's going to be absolutely necessary to continue to discuss and talk about and organize for, because we are going to have to stay staffed. And, we want students to know that if they don't necessarily want to go the 4-year route, they don't have to. There are options that they can take to get into water that don't require taking on tens of thousands of dollars of debt, or maybe going through a 4-year program that they don't want, or that they're not really equipped for, or that they're just not interested in. And so that's really kind of the push looking ahead as water professionals and what we do in water to kind of drum up that interest. And that's kind of already started. And I want to thank Tiffany Baca again for sharing that information for WIA and kind of what they're doing to get ahead of that. So before we wrap up the panel, I want to invite my boss, Mike McNutt, to kind of shed a little more light on the district's role in that. And then we are going to move forward with the breakout rooms in a couple minutes here.
Thank you, Ricky. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's enjoying the conversation. And I just kind of wanted to take a minute and just thank everybody for spending your power lunch time with us and talking about really important issues as we move forward. And I just kind of wanted to reiterate a lot of things that Ricky said. One of the reasons why we wanted to do this is because things are changing in real time in front of us when it comes to how important education is. And just having to adapt and pivot our lives to kind of just meet the moment, like Ricky was saying in this. And as a water agency, we're part of the community, and we do more than just provide water services to all of you and to all of the businesses and to all the students. We want to be part of a movement, which I think this is a great start to doing so, on how to continue to push forward with some of these big ticket items that are going to take a lot of people to come together and make and provide solutions to climate change, sustainability, water quality, environmental protection, environmental justice, and having discussion right now specifically regarding what parents and teachers are experiencing right now, so we can all have a better understanding of those challenges, is really important for our organization and a lot of the missions that we have as being good stewards of the environment as we move forward collectively together. So we wanted to put this on in a manner to start this as a building block that we can all collectively come together as an education community and an environmental community and as a water provider together to really make something unique and different moving forward. And the best way to do this is do exactly what we're doing, having conversations together. And we just really appreciate everybody's time that you're taking to spend with us today. So thank you, Ricky, for allowing me to say a couple of words. And again, I hope everybody's having a good day.
Thank you, Mike. And I want to thank our panelists once again before we get started with the breakout sessions. Nancy, Dr. Finneran, Allison, Adrian, you all shed some great light on kind of the status of education and what it's looking like moving forward, especially as it relates to CTE and water. So thank you all. As we move forward, I'm going to go ahead and mute you guys again. So as we move forward, we're going to get into the breakout session. So just a quick refresher of those sessions. One is going to be Kelly with the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains. Go ahead and wave, Kelly. She will be leading a water-centric demo of one of their many distance learning activities that they're offering for parents, teachers, students, things of that sort. So if you're interested, you can join that one. We will also have Roman Slavinsky leading the Learning Pods breakout room. Roman, go ahead and wave so everyone can see you. Thank you. And then finally, we'll have LaSalle DeGrave offering some insight on homeschooling alternatives. So go ahead and wave, LaSalle. I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms so you all can start choosing them yourself. However, before we end, because once the breakout rooms are completed, you all are free to go about your day. I'd like to remind everyone to join us again for session 2, which is the same day, same time next week, next Thursday at 12. We will be, actually, let me share my screen here. So you all can see that. Next week will feature our keynote speaker, Jessica Leahy. She's an educator and author of The Gift of Failure, How the Best Parents Learn to Let Go So Their Children Can Succeed. She'll be offering some insight on teaching and raising resilient children. And then finally, we will be sort of debuting our virtual tour of our Las Virgenes Triunfo Pure Water Demonstration Facility. And I will be conducting that first-person tour of our indirect potable reuse project. For those of you that are unfamiliar, this is kind of the big thing coming out of the district right now, right? This is a project where we are taking highly treated recycled water from our Tapia facility, sending it through the advanced treatment process, and creating pure water which meets drinking water standards and which we'll be able to add back into our distribution system again. So this is the project that is essentially creating our own localized source of water where it does not exist currently. And this is really kind of the forefront of water security and sustainability and kind of how we're leading the way in those conversations. So make sure you stay tuned for that. You'll be receiving another email from me with the link to that, that webinar. So with no further ado, I'll check the chat one more time to see if we have any questions. It looks like we do not. Thank you guys for joining us, and I'll open the breakout rooms. They're all labeled with the names. So Kelly, Roman, LaSalle, as well as the topics that they're offering. So I'm going to open those up, and you all are free to join the breakout rooms. And once you're done, I'll be popping in there, so I might still see a few of you. If not, I will see the rest of you next week. And if you're having issues joining the breakout rooms, it's most likely because you're not updated. So if not, you can just let me know in the chat and I can assign you to whichever breakout room you would like to join. Thank you guys. And I'll be here for any questions, anything like that. I'll wait for you all to go to your assigned breakout rooms. Let me know if you all have any questions, but it looks like you guys have it figured out. to the homeschooling assigned to learning.
Add on to make math more alive as compared to just seeing a problem solved in a textbook. We're able, both the student and the teacher are able to write on the interactive whiteboard at the same time. And we're able to email those notes to the student after the lesson for them to review additionally if they'd like. In regards to identifying which assignments they need done, that's where our office staff logs on to the portal. We do a full audit of assignments that have been graded and assignments that potentially are missing and assignments that are coming up to be due so that we can help students with organizing their time.
And how do you help with like English papers?
So with English papers, it comes down to planning in advance. No English essay is ever assigned to be due 2 days later. So when the teacher assigns the reading, we want to make sure that we're, first of all, we're helping the student to digest the reading at the right pace with the class. And secondarily, we're helping the student, first of all, organize their thoughts using thinking maps and outlines. The writing is done on Google Docs, and we provide those revisions similar to how a school teacher would on the essay as comments. We're not sitting there and watching the child write. We're doing planning and guiding. Then the student is doing work independently. We review in Google Docs, and then we get together in the next lesson to talk about the changes that should be implemented.
Thank you. That answered a lot of questions. Thank you.
Of course, my absolute pleasure. Hi, Ricky. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Roman. I actually have a question, and hopefully you haven't already, no one has already asked this, but with obviously, you know, you direct a tutoring service and you guys have adapted and evolved with COVID to offer like learning groups and learning pods. Have there been any concerns expressed by your customers or anything of that sort about like the safety of gathering and what you guys do to kind of, you know, make sure that that's addressed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing that we did when deciding to resume in-person lessons, like we sat through and thought of, if this was somebody coming to my house, I have 2 small kids, like how comfortable would I feel with things? So the first thing that we decided is that it can't happen inside the house. It has to happen in an outdoor space because that's what we see restaurants doing. So covered outdoor space, everybody wears a mask. We do multiple hand washing and temperature checks, but we decided to take one extra step besides that. Since obviously we're coming to someone's house, we're limiting teachers to how many students they can meet within a day. So 1 family per day. So the teacher that's coming out to, let's say, work with your child from 12 to 3 will not be going to another family's house that day through us.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So that they're not like switching in between groups.
Exactly, because then it's more than just one person showing up into your house. It's everybody everywhere else where they have been.
That makes sense.
And thankfully, everything's worked out for us. Our teachers are playing things very safe as well. And happy to report that the only cancellations we've had have been due to the air quality, not due to COVID.
Okay, that makes sense. So I'm curious then, have you seen like a switch over as far as demand for your tutoring services now kind of going more towards learning pods, or do you kind of work them together like in your business model?
So what we've noticed is it's actually getting broken down by kids' age. Elementary school is pods and in person, whether it's 1-on-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. Sometimes we might even have a pod where it's 3 kids in 1 family. But for the 5th grade and younger, we're definitely noticing a huge spike that they need somebody in person. it's hard to learn how to read over a computer. For the older kids, since they have like subject specific help, they've been getting by all right. They get mixed experiences, one teacher to another, but for the most part with online, they're able to effectively handle that without needing to have an actual person come in with all the protocols in place.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's really interesting. I never thought of it from the terms of kind of like grade level, even though it makes sense because obviously the older the child, kind of the more autonomy they have and the more independent they are with their studies. But nonetheless, I'm sure just the ability to gather and be around other people has been very helpful for students that aren't able to have that learning environment in classrooms anymore. So it's really awesome that you guys have been able to adapt and, you know, start offering this. And I'm glad that parents have been open-minded to it as well.
Yeah, parents have been really great. They've really gone above and beyond in terms of like providing the space and everything to be there because they're seeing that their child needs to get feedback from somebody else besides themselves in person. Like, how is your child going to respond to negative results or to praise if they haven't seen a person smile at them? Talking about their personal performance. So that human engagement is really necessary for the kids. They're yearning for it. Like you can imagine first day back in school when a second grader sees their first grade teacher, they're going to run up and hug her.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You know, we rely so heavily on like nonverbal cues, especially as you mentioned for, you know, just people kind of verifying you and validating you. And that's so important with kids as they're growing up. So, and it's not always something that you can get over a webcam, unfortunately. So, yeah, like I said, it's just really great that you're able to offer that and kids are still able to, benefit from that because I know one of the biggest reasons that distance learning is so unpopular amongst students especially is they miss that socialization and that's so important for kids, you know, at that age. So it's great that you're able to safely offer that service.
Yeah, we're glad to just be able to help kids however they can and families. It's hard having kids at home and seeing firsthand, especially when the parents might not know exactly how to help with that specific subject. So our job, we look at everything as a roundtable situation where we just want to seat at the table. There's no sides. And the goal is to help the child go back to normal when normal happens.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Roman. That's the breadth of my questions.
Awesome. Renee, Jay, do you guys have any other questions?
I don't. Thank you so much. I'm going to have to leave, but I appreciate you answering my questions and you have enlightened me. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
I'm good. Thank you, Roman. That was great.
Thanks, Jade. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Roman. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So should I close out of the share and close the meeting?
Yeah, you can. Everyone's leaving from the breakout room, so we're not going back to the main room. So thank you again. Thank you for offering your time. I really appreciate it. And I think that you had some really good information to offer. So I really appreciate it. Thanks, Roman.
Thanks so much for thinking of us and let me know how I can be involved with your wonderful organization again.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll find you on LinkedIn. I'll add you.
Okay, sounds good. Bye, Roman.
Bye.
And so then it makes them want to learn more about the plants and the animals and the wildlife. And we know as soon as they start to want to learn about it, they're going to start to care about it. And so that's, I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. I'm going to just stop sharing the screen. I know we're out of time, but any questions about that one? All right, I'll just keep moving real fast and show you my slides. And then again, feel free to let me know if you'd like them. So the next slide is Project WET. I'm a Project WET facilitator, and I just finished a Project WET training with 29 educators. And I think it is one of the best water curriculums out there. It's very hands-on, in person, but it's also a fantastic distance learning resource. So Project WET has created a number of different activities. So if you see, we won't go into it, but you can go to this link and you can see there's Blue Planet, where the students are doing math and they're clicking on the globe that's spinning, and they click 25 times, and then they figure out the percentages, and they see how much, what percentage of the earth is land, and what percentage is water. And so, and then there's one on the water cycle, there's one about soap. There are just so many activities that they can do. And then Project WET also has some great distance learning activities where they walk you through step by step activities to teach you about what a watershed is.
Audience there that's interested in something like this. So to that note, no, I actually hope that this motivates people to take a little bit more control over their children's education and know that there's other opportunities out there. And I'm not just saying that because I'm doing it. I think this was a trend that we were seeing before the pandemic, and now that some people are just kind of being forced into that situation. I think they may stay doing it if it works for them.
I actually think you're right. I think more people are going to do it. And I also think the availability of supplies, like you were talking about the Kiwi kit, there's a lot more available now than used to be there. So I think it makes it easier for people who are more marginal. You know, they weren't so committed. They can at least take the chance because there's something they can use and something to stand on. That's what I think. It's going to continue.
I think so. I hope it's a positive trend. It's just, like I said, I don't think that homeschooling is as Little House on the Prairie. It's not like when I was a kid, the homeschool kids were always kind of weirdos. I'm sorry. Like, if anybody's, I shouldn't have probably said that. If you were a homeschooler, like, I commend your parents because they homeschooled before the internet existed. And that must have been hard work. But no, I agree with you. Like tomorrow, for example, with our cohort, we're all meeting at someone's house at 8 in the morning, and we've divided the kids into 2 groups. Why kids should have social media, why they shouldn't. My kids do not have phones and they're not on social media. They wanted to be on the side of why kids should have social media, but they got picked on the no. And I said, you actually have a lot more data. You're going to have a way better fight, to be honest. You're on a winning team. So we're getting together at someone's house at 8 in the morning. I've told them you need to be dressed up. So my daughter already dug through my closet, and my son was, no, I want to wear my t-shirt, Mom. I said, let me tell you, when you go up in front of an audience, how you appear is almost as important as what you're saying, because so, you know, things like that. I think I think as parents can take a more active role in what their kids are learning, and we just have to get creative. It's a lot of work. I'm not going to make it sound like it's easy, but like I said, I just feel like I don't have another choice. Like, this is I only get one chance at parenting, and I'm not perfect, but this is just something that was on my heart, and we're doing it. But completely lost my train of thought. But, you know, I really think there's so many resources out there. And I'm glad to see that parents are taking an effort, even if they're forced to do it, because they might realize, like I said, that they actually like hanging out with their kids and they want to be involved and know more about what they're learning.
I agree. Lizelle, I'm sorry, I have to go. I have another appointment. But it was nice speaking to everybody, and I'll see you all again next month or next week. Next week.
Bye.
All
Thank you, Allison.
Bye. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Bye, Allison.
Bye-bye.
I think we're about done unless anyone has any more questions.
No, I don't.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Lizelle.
you for sharing that with us.
Yes, thank you.
Guys.
That was great. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks
Good
for
to see you,
organizing.
Lizelle.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Change for middle schoolers, and what they're doing is each week they're debating a different topic. So this week, for example, they're doing the California Coastal Commission, and a hotel wants to build beside Malibu Lagoon. Should they be able to build? And each group is a different stakeholder. So that, for example, is a paid program where that school district is paying us. In the spring, we went into the Las Virgenes Unified 4th and 5th grade classes, and we had we sent them an asynchronous lesson, then we went in for the synchronous, and our educators, it turned into more of an ask the scientist type lesson. And so really, I think that the name of the game for us this year is being as flexible as possible, just to do whatever we can to support teachers and students. And so, you know, if a teacher wants something or needs something, I'll make it happen for them.
Thank you.
And I know that we are 7 minutes over time, so you're welcome to leave. I'm seeing the emails here, so I will make sure to save those and email everybody my slide deck. And if anyone, I'm happy to stay and answer any other questions. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Kelly.
Nice to meet everybody.
Same. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lowhill.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thanks everybody.
Thanks,
all around.
Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it. Director Lowhill, you did great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director
Kelly, you
Lowhill.
were very, very informative. We appreciate
yeah.
your time.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for agreeing to lead this breakout room. It was very well attended, and most of the people wanted to see what you guys had to offer, so I'm really glad to see that.
Good.
Yeah, I was just listening to you talk, Kelly, which just made me really think that it would be great if we could collaborate collectively on putting on some educational learning opportunities for just through the region, whether we can collaborate directly with LVUSD or Oaks Christian or Viewpoint or some of these other school systems that can really learn about, you know, what we have to offer and the things that we need to say, because I think we all know how critical moving forward really is when it comes to natural resources, the environment, climate change, et cetera. And I think that we could really do something special for a lot of students out there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I've seen Ricky present, you know, she's fantastic.
Yes.
I'd love to work with you, Ricky, and
Thanks,
you know,
Kelly.
figure out a way to reach as many students as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's definitely the goal. So we definitely want to explore that moving forward. I mean, I don't know if students are going to be back, you know, full time when the new semester starts, but either way, you know, I know. Either way, I think that we should look in ways that we can serve them, whether it's going to be in person or whether, you know, for what we're offering still needs to be distance. I'm, you know, more than willing to see how we can collaborate to offer that.
And, you know, I haven't gotten there yet, but one thing that I would love to do to support teachers in the schools is when they go back, you know, they're probably going to be still in somewhat of a blended format. So they're going to be maybe there half of the day, in the morning or the afternoon. And I'd love to get on the campuses to get the students outside so that there's more social distancing. It's easier for them to move around. And so, doing some of these Project Wet activities on the fields and doing things like that, I think would be just so good for the students.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Kelly, are you from Minnesota?
No,
Where-
go farther north.
Oh, you're in Canada.
wow.
Toronto.
Director Lowhill is from Canada.
Kelly, I'm from Edmonton, Alberta.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the out. I think that was like, oh, wait, I've heard that somewhere before.
Still, I've been here over 20 years.
That's
things just
funny. I
stick with
didn't
you.
pick up on that. I think maybe if I had heard you say sorry, maybe I would have been.
I might have said that a few times as I was watching myself go over time. I really
no
wanted
worries.
everyone to get a chance to introduce themselves.
Yeah, and all of the sessions, I was kind of popping in and out of each breakout session, and they all went a few minutes over, and we were able to retain all of the attendees too. So you still had everyone here and they were still engaged and interested. So that's perfectly fine as long as you're willing to offer that extra time. So I really appreciate
yeah. I could have went on for another hour. I want to, show everybody those activities because they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And the information you had to offer was very relevant, very pertinent, and we really appreciate it. So thank you, Kelly. And
I'm gonna go online and look up what your organization, Kelly, and see what it has to offer.
Okay, great. Yeah. If you have any questions about that too, let me know. It's a pretty cool organization, all of the different things that we do. In the Santa Monica Mountains,
And who is it run by? It's a government organization?
Yeah, so we're a special district, and so we're a local special district. So we're a smaller special district. So, we have a little bit, I don't know, less than 1% of the tax base comes, for funding. So most of what we do is grant and fee for service.
Okay.
So, and the neat thing is because of that, we can kind of follow our own interests. So we have our senior biologist who loves fish and trees and makes that connection. And so she's, been with us over 30 years and has spent her career protecting our oak trees and trying to do what she can for our steelhead trout.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Kelly, just so that I'm sure, how do you pronounce your last name?
So it's Kazmerchuk.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's phonetic. The kindergarten teachers always get it right, and by 5th grade,
I thought it was Kazmerchuk, but I didn't want to butcher it. I should have made sure, but I'm glad I had it right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you for participating. The information, like I said, you had to offer was very interesting and very relevant. So we appreciate it. Linda, thank you for joining us, and thank you for providing the opening remarks. We really appreciate it. You're always willing to participate. So thank you so much.
Okay,
you guys are
Ricky.
free to go on about your days.
Okay.
And
Ricky.
actually,
you, everybody.
real quick, a lot of people gave their emails. I could just screenshot it, but I don't know that I'm able to, for some reason, save the chat.
I think I can. 1 second before I close out.
Okay.
Hey, I'll see you guys later, okay?
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
And I can just screenshot too.
Yeah, I don't think I can save it, but I can just copy and paste that part.
Okay, and that's.
And then
Okay, I just screenshot all I need, so.
Okay, are you sure?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
I think so. Let me make sure there's. Oh yeah, because it's the entire chat. So I just need. Yeah. And if any of them don't work, I'll let you know. Well, thank you for inviting me. That was fun.
Great. I'm glad. I'm so glad. And yours was by far the one that was the most attended. So I'm happy that people got the information they were looking for.
Oh, great. And yeah, the panel was interesting too at first. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
So well done. And I don't know if you know, we might be neighbors soon.
What do you mean?
So the back office, the upstairs part behind the Pure Water building.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's the same building. We might be moving our office there.
Oh, what? I haven't heard about that at That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's all in the works. I've kind of, I don't hear the week to week details, but I'm really hoping it'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, that would make for a pretty easy collaboration between our two agencies too. Where are you guys currently located?
In Topanga.
Oh, okay. So is that within the mountains, or are you guys kind of more on the baseline?
No, that's it, like right in the mount. That's kind of
Okay.
really in the mountains.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I've only been over there a few times, and I've always been like up the winding roads and really in the mountains. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. All right. So we'll definitely keep in contact. And if you or anyone you know is interested, obviously session 2 is next week. Like I mentioned, we'll have the keynote, and then we'll also be giving a virtual tour of our pure water facility. So hopefully, if
And then
you have
I'm just
some time.
curious, what are you doing in terms of like distance learn? Are you working with Las Virgenes schools right now, or?
Yeah, so our main thing is our virtual tours. So we're offering the virtual tours of the Pure Water demonstration facility, and then of our Tapia facility. So we just opened that one, the Pure Water facility. We did like a virtual grand opening, and that was back in September. And so we're kind of just finishing up and kind of tying up some loose ends to get ready to offer that virtual tour to students. Hopefully, we can start sometime this month, and then the virtual tour of Tapia as well. So that's our biggest outreach. Last semester we did we worked with Shows That Teach that created like conservation videos, and they released them weekly that touched on like water conservation, you know, hygiene and stuff like that. And that went out to our K-5. And so this year we're focusing more so on our tours. We've been putting a lot of time into that, and then we're kind of looking into potentially doing some like sustainability gardens with the school district, but we have some stuff to work out with that first before we get into it.
I used to be the garden manager at my kids' school. So if you want to ever talk about that, let me know.
Okay. So I have been a part of garden programs at previous water agencies that I've worked at. And the reason why I'm not really gung ho about doing this is because the responsibility of upkeeping the garden always, it kind of ends up in flux, especially, you know, during the breaks and during the summer vacation. And so I'm really hesitant to invest this money and then see the gardens kind of, you know, go to trash, for lack of better words, because there aren't really clear parameters for who manages it. So I'm wondering if that's something that you've kind of experienced or have some experience with.
That is absolutely what I've experienced. It tends to be every school garden that I have knowledge of has been managed by parents. And then parents come and go. And so once that passionate parent leaves, then what? You know,
right, exactly.
And so, you know, the garden that I managed is well, it's COVID, so I'm not sure, but it's just dirt right now. And so the beds are still there and everything, but you know, it's kind of, I've seen it happen a number of times. So yeah, I don't want to discourage it because I think it's the most amazing thing for the students. But yeah, it's all about having, like you said, that plan. So who's going to take care of this in the summer?
Right.
Who's going to, how is there going to be a transition?
Right.
And the transition thing is really big.
Yeah. So I think once we can kind of get a commitment from the school district as far as who's going to handle that at the 3 locations, then I think that we'll be able to kind of set something up more, more concrete. But we'll have to work through a few other things before we do that. But moving forward, CTE is really the biggest thing that we're trying to focus on, getting that curriculum, offering those classes to students, and really drumming up that interest, because like we mentioned, we're facing a silver tsunami with staffing. And so, we're always going to do the conservation and the presentations, and that's all low-hanging fruit that we've been doing for forever, but we're trying to kick it up a notch and really innovate, how we're addressing those needs. And I think a big challenge is, getting our board on board with it, because, from their perspective, they want to see like the conservation, they want to see the presentations, and it's like, well, yeah, we're doing that. But this is kind of the next level and this is kind of the future. So we need like buy-in into that. And so I think really getting that solid buy-in and understanding how it works in the whole scheme of education as a whole. Once we can sell them on that, we'll be in a really good position to kind of expand into that more.
Now, have you heard of the state seal of civic engagement?
The state's seal of civic engagement, what?
Yeah, it's a new initiative that was just passed, and what it is for most, I think it's for high school students right now. It's still kind of in the process of being rolled out. It hasn't started. I think there's kind of early people that are kind of entering it early. I don't know what school districts. I can find out more if you're interested. But what it does is it allows high school students when they graduate to get this seal on their diploma that says that they were involved with civics. And so there are all these requirements that they have to do. And so, part of that is community service. It's part of it is understanding government and understanding special districts and understanding, different things like that. And so just as you were talking, I was thinking, that might be a way to tie in the CTE with, what you're looking to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That sounds interesting. I'll have to look into that more. So you said it's the state seal of civic engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that a little bit more, and just making sure that, in the eyes of my board and my directors, that it's very water centric and not just civics.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And if you, look into it and are interested, I can connect you with the, you're a California special district, right?
Yes.
Okay. So CSDA hired a consultant to work on this whole seal. And so I know has early adopters already. I haven't been too involved with it, but I could, if you ever want to just kind of learn the basics, and if it seems like it's a fit, I can connect you with Hewling.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely connect on that. Oh, my boss is calling me, so I'm going to jump off.
I will let you go.
But thank you again, Kelly. I really appreciate it. And you did a wonderful job. So thank you.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Have a good one.